This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Nigerian security agency's Mount Rescue mission as alleged video of kidnapped students emerges. Global coronavirus cases surpass 119.5 million as Africa reaches 4 million cases. Conflict grows between U.S. and allies over vaccine supplies. Hello and welcome to Africa Live. As always, great to have you with us. I'm Richard Nta. And for those of you joining us from across the continent and around the globe, we thank you for joining us. Let's take a look at other stories making headlines this hour. The economic impact of the pandemic in the UK drives increasing numbers to rely on food banks. And in sports, Ugandans share their expectations as Motsepe takes charge at CAF. Once again, welcome to Africa Live. We have reporters standing by at this hour to bring you live reports as well. In Nigeria, Lagos, Deji Badamis as the latest on the kidnappings of the students and the fourth since December. And from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, Gerun Chala reports live at this hour on Ethiopia's reaction after the U.S.'s criticism over the situation in Tigray. All right, once again, welcome to Africa Live. I'm Richard Nta. We begin with the update on the latest student kidnappings in Nigeria. Video footage shared on social media shows students from Kaduna State begging to be rescued by the government. Dozens of students were kidnapped in an overnight attack on Thursday. This is the fourth such incident since late last year and a growing spate of kidnappings across the country. CGTN's Joy Karuki brings us more.
In the video, one person said the abductors are asking for ransom worth over $1 million. Another says she's one of students taken from the Federal College of Forestry Mechanization. Relaying messages from the abductors, the young men and women call on the Nigerian government to help them.
We are pleading on the government to come and rescue us. Most of us here have been injured, badly injured. Time is going. Most of us here are having health issues, and they are complaining about the government trying to send security operatives to come and rescue us from here, which is almost and a half impossible because these people they have surrounded us, saying anybody that comes from anywhere to come and rescue us or do anything by force, they are going to take our lives.
Peace upon you. I am one of the students that was abducted from the forestry mechanization the day before yesterday. We are appealing to the government to help us. I heard the government saying that they will send soldiers to rescue us. Please help us and come to our aid. Please do not send anyone because they have assured us that if soldiers come, none of us will return home.
Kaduna State's Security Commissioner said gunmen had attacked the college overnight on Thursday. He reported that 180 people were rescued in the early hours of Friday during the assault. However, he also said at least 30 students, a mixture of men and women, remain unaccounted for. This is the fourth such incident since December last year, where students are being captured for ransom. And earlier this month, 279 girls were kidnapped from a school in Zamfara State by armed men. Residents are worried that the so-called bandits are being left unpunished as the incidents increase among institutions in the north. Joy Kiruki Juma, CGTN.
We have our reporter Deji Badamis live with us in Lagos. Deji, thanks for joining us here on Africa Live. Deji, what is the latest on the kidnappings in Kaduna?
Well, Richard, what I can tell you is that there's a frantic search for the girls, the students now. And virtually all the security agencies are involved in this operation, the rescue operation. The security agencies are not disclosing much. They're not saying, what they've just said is that they're making progress and that they're closing in on the bandits, and so the search is on. So you have the Air Force involved, the Army involved, the Department of State Services, the police, virtually all the security agencies in this country involved in this operation. And the Commissioner of Police in that state has said very soon that there will be a breakthrough. We don't know what's actually going on. What we know for sure is that in that state, the governor of that state has a policy of not negotiating with bandits, and even the president too has ruled out any form of negotiation. So everyone is waiting to see how this would be sorted out. Of course, as you know, as was reported earlier now, the bandits have asked for around $1.5 million. So it's everyone is waiting to see how this would be sorted out. But the impression the government is giving is that it intends to sort this out militarily, using force. But we just have to wait. We don't know if any talks are going on at all. But that rescue operation is on. And what we've been told is that sooner than later, there would be a breakthrough. I have also been speaking with one of the student leaders in that school now, just before we came on air. He told me they are planning to organize a protest to mount pressure on the government to get the students rescued as quickly as possible, because, of course, as we saw in that video, their situation is quite dire. Richard?
Well, we're certainly waiting for that breakthrough, Deji. What's the reaction in Nigeria to these videos claimed to be showing the captives at the mercy of the abductors?
Richard, one word: heartbreak. People have been heartbroken by that video. Don't forget, Richard, this is actually about the first time that bandits would go into a tertiary institution, a higher institution, a college. You know, before what we had seen was that they would go into a secondary school mainly, but this time they went into a higher institution, not in a remote area, in the city, just outside the capital of the city, as a matter of fact, and very close to a very huge military facility. So people are heartbroken by that video, and it has increased the pressure on government. People are asking the government to do everything it can to ensure these students are released. I mean, just look at the students. Most of them half naked. It's evoked a lot of reaction, to be candid, and so people are mounting. The pressure is growing on the government to do something to get these students released as quickly as possible. And you know, the more people watch that video, you know, the more the reaction is. It's to be candid, Richard, quite heartbreaking to see the students in that video, in that kind of situation. Some of the girls half naked. It's just terrible, and that's the kind of reaction we've been getting across the country. People shouting, and you know, the criticism against the government, of course, sky high, and we're waiting to see what the government does. So everyone wants this thing to be resolved as soon as possible, if possible, as soon as now.
Thank you so much, Deji Badamus. Heartbreaking, heart-wrenching. No words to describe what we're seeing coming out of Nigeria. Deji Badamus, thank you for keeping a close eye on that story once again. Now, over in Ethiopia, the government has rejected claims made by the U.S. of ethnic cleansing taking place in Tigray. In a tweet, the Foreign Affairs Ministry called the claims completely unfounded. U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken made the claims while addressing Congress and called for full accountability. The Ethiopian government launched a military operation in Tigray against the former regional ruling party, the TPLF, in November. And for more details, let's cross over to Gerun Chal in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Gerun, thank you for joining us here on Africa Live. Let's dive straight into this one. The U.S. claims about the situation in Tigray have been strongly denied by Ethiopia. What can you tell us about the situation in Tigray as of right now from sources on the ground and from government accounts.
Richard, first of all, Antony Blinken, U.S. Secretary of State, in his address in the Congress was not only saying that ethnic cleansing took place in the Tigray regional state of Ethiopia by Eritrean soldiers, he was also calling on the government here to withdraw Eritrean soldiers from different locations in the northern part of the country, and also Ethiopia's Amhara regional militia themselves, which, as you have said, the Ethiopian government has strongly rejected and said these allegations are unfounded, especially the one that claims the ethnic cleansing. Now, at the moment, to answer your question, in the Tigray regional state, I've been trying to speak to the administrators of the provisional administration of the Tigray regional state, and they were telling me things are going according to plan. For instance, peace and security is returning to normalcy slowly but surely after the what is called the mission to return the constitutional order back to its place has been completed. On the other hand, humanitarian aid is also being delivered for the needy. As you know, more than 3 million people out of the 6 million people in the Tigray regional state are in need of daily humanitarian services, and international aid organizations are trying to deliver that, but the government is taking the upper hand in this regard, and they are delivering it at the moment. And finally, what is being done now at the moment strongly by the government, both by the regional and the federal government, is the work of rehabilitation and reconstruction of the war-ravaged Tigray regional state locations. So all in all, things can be said that they are returning to normalcy, but here and there we hear that there are still fightings going on and different ambushes by TPLF forces, and that is really disrupting the peace and security situation of the region itself, Richard.
Well, the U.S. seems to be pushing its weight around just a little bit. They're threatening not to resume assistance to Ethiopia for security programs. What does this mean, and how will this affect Ethiopia? Gero?
Richard, the United States support to Ethiopia mainly revolves around two important areas, one of which is development, economic activity, and the other one, as you've said, is peace and security. Now, the Trump administration is the one which posed this assistance in all sectors, including the security sector assistance to Ethiopia. And the Biden administration now also said that they will relieve they will unpause some of the funds, especially on the development area and food assistance. But then again, they will continue disallowing the provision of money for peace and security cooperation between Ethiopia and the U.S. But you should understand that this will affect a lot of things, not only Ethiopia, but the region itself. As Ethiopia is a peace and security ally, not only to itself as a country, but also in the regional level. For instance, in the fight against Al-Shabaab in the region, or terrorism in general terms, Ethiopia is a strong ally to the United States, and most of the money that the U.S. gives to Ethiopia goes to this effort of, strengthening the anti-terror unit of the security force from the Ethiopian side. So that means nobody means this situation of fighting terrorism alongside the United States and other regional forces will be affected. The Ethiopian authorities tell you that the United States needs to rethink its decision, because the peace and security of the situation can only be resolved in this region, especially terrorism, with cooperation, not with withdrawing funds like what the U.S. have done. So this is really a worrying factor from the Ethiopian side, but the United States has made up its mind, but we shall see in the next few months perhaps this could change or not.
Indeed, Gero Nchala, thank you for bringing all of that there to light. That's Gero Nchala speaking to us live from Addis Ababa. Now, in other news, Turkey is showing a change of heart in its ties with Egypt after years of tensions, which has seen diplomatic representation downgraded. Ankara says it is looking forward to strengthening its ties with Cairo. Both countries have been standing on opposite sides in several regional issues and conflicts. Better ties with Egypt and Turkey could reflect positively on the Middle East. Here's Adel El Mahroui with more.
After announcing the continuation of intelligence coordination with Egypt, this week, Turkey says it has begun diplomatic contact. It's a major step for both nations who have severed official ties since 2013, when Egypt's military ousted former President Mohamed Morsi following a popular uprising against the Muslim Brotherhood's rule.
Our intelligence, diplomatic and economic cooperation with Egypt is continuing anyway. There are no issues there. This is not at the highest level, but right below the highest level. We hope that we can continue this process with Egypt much more strongly.
Turkey's main problem is that it is marginalized from all the reaches of the Mediterranean. That's mainly because of the Greek and Cypriotic islands. Turkey tried to make gains through an agreement with Libya and by force with Greece. France responded with military naval training with Greece in that area. So now, it needs a strong regional partner like Egypt to have legitimate rights in the East Mediterranean.
Cairo has never responded equally to Turkey's harsh criticism, describing President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi's administration as illegitimate. Even with Turkey's apparent openness to resume ties, Egypt remains discreet, neither confirming nor denying the unofficial resumption of communication. Egyptian state-owned Middle East news agency, though, quoted an unnamed Egyptian official saying that evolving ties requires abiding to international law and stopping interference in domestic affairs.
Egypt doesn't want to hear positive words. It wants to see actual steps that show goodwill, that proves Turkish intention for reconciliation and ending this division. Turkey must stop supporting the Muslim Brotherhood and their media channel, which it hosts. It must admit the legitimacy of the current Egyptian administration, and it must stop supporting extremist groups in Libya.
During the 8 past years, Cairo and Ankara have stood on opposite sides in regional conflicts. That was clear in Libya, Syria and Iraq. Even when East Mediterranean nations began drawing their exclusive maritime economic zones, Egypt sided with Greece and Cyprus against Turkey. Both countries are quite involved in regional politics. Better ties between the two Middle Eastern powers could help in achieving regional stability.
Egypt has not yet publicly announced a change of heart towards Turkey. There is hope, however. Egyptian officials have leaked information about a Turkish request for Cairo to host talks between the two nations. If that meeting happens, it could be the turning point for better relations between the two countries. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
The body of Côte d'Ivoire's late Prime Minister Hamed Bakayoko has arrived in Abidjan from Germany. Bakayoko, who was also the defense minister, was evacuated to France on the 18th of February for health reasons before being transferred to a hospital in Germany. He died of cancer on Wednesday at the age of 56. The government declared an 8-day national mourning in his memory. The funeral is scheduled for Thursday in Siguela, the hometown of the Prime Minister, located in the north of the country. After several years of service to President Alassane Ouattara, Hamed Bakayoko was expected to succeed him in 2025.
Hamed Bakayoko est un homme généreux.
The announcement of the death of the Prime Minister was a blow because he was our mentor. He was an inspiration and a model for us. When he was elected mayor of our commune, he motivated us young people who are discouraged. He was a generous and friendly man. He never made any distinction between people, ethnic groups and religions. He had a unifying speech, and that is what I remember about him.
Consternation.
It was with dismay that we learned of the death of the Prime Minister. Many people were shocked by the sudden announcement of his death. I did not expect him to die at all, because at no time did he show any sign of weakening. Everything happened so quickly. Today, I remember that he was a loyal, committed, dynamic and generous man who is still needed in Côte d'Ivoire. Hamed Bakayoko represented a hope for the whole of the young generation that we are. He was a bridge between the old and the new generation.
Don't go away. The news continues here on Africa Live. Here's a look at what's ahead. Global coronavirus cases surpass 119.5 million as Africa reaches 4 million cases. Conflict continues to grow between the U.S. and allies over vaccine supply.
Africa is a continent of diversity, with varied climates and enchanting geography, and a people so distinct, but with a shared enduring spirit. we are at the heart of the continent to bring you the untold stories.
Let's have a look.
We celebrate Africa as it shapes its own destiny.
Tunis, Cairo,
Juba,
Ethiopia,
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back, everyone, to Africa Live. Thanks for staying with us. The overall number of global COVID-19 cases has topped 119.5 million. Out of these, 2.6 million people have died. The United States has recorded the highest number of infections at 29.4 million, with 534,000 deaths. The cases in Africa have topped 4 million. Of these, there have been 106,000 deaths. Still, officials are optimistic as more countries roll out their vaccination campaigns. The U.S. administration is reportedly stockpiling tens of millions of doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine. The vaccine has received emergency clearance from the European Union and World Health Organization, but not from the U.S. Reports say American partners are prodding President Joe Biden to release the supply, saying the administration already has enough jabs lined up. The EU is at odds with AstraZeneca because it says the company is delivering far fewer doses to the bloc than it had promised. AstraZeneca says that the U.S.-produced vaccines are owned by the U.S. government. It says sending them overseas will require the White House approval. Meanwhile, 5 European countries are calling for a summit to discuss what they say are huge disparities in vaccine distribution. Austria, the Czech Republic, Slovenia, Bulgaria, and Latvia issued the call after Austria's chancellor suggested some European countries have, quote, secret contracts, close quote, with vaccine suppliers. Europe has struggled with a sluggish rollout in recent weeks. EU leaders say a summit on the pandemic is already scheduled for the end of the month. Health officials in the Democratic Republic of Congo have delayed the rollout of the AstraZeneca vaccine. This follows reports of the formation of blood clots in some people who had been vaccinated in Europe. The campaign was slated for March the 15th. CGTN's Chris Ochemringa has more from Kinshasa.
The DRC Health Ministry's decision to postpone the use of the AstraZeneca vaccine comes a week after the country received 1.7 million doses of the vaccine under the COVAX program. The postponement comes on the heels of the suspension of the vaccine by several European countries. Officials in Denmark, Norway, Iceland, and Bulgaria cited the formation of blood clots in some people who were vaccinated as the reason to suspend its use. But scientists from the World Health Organization say the vaccine is safe. They say they found no link between the AstraZeneca jab and an increased risk of developing a clot. The DRC was set to start its vaccination campaign on the 15th of March. It's still not clear when the campaign will resume. The country has recorded more than 22,000 COVID-19 cases and over 700 deaths since March last year. Chris Ochemringa, CGTN, Kinshasa, Democratic Republic of Congo.
Tunisia has launched its COVID-19 vaccination campaign. On Tuesday, Tunis received 30,000 doses of Russia's Sputnik V, its first major delivery of the vaccines. Vaccinations have started with healthcare workers, soldiers, and security officers, people over 65, and people with chronic health problems.
Mahrzia Hammami is the first Tunisian citizen to get vaccinated. The nurse at Badu Basic Healthcare Facility volunteered and encouraged all citizens to join the national vaccination campaign.
I worked at COVID-19 centers, intensive care units, and the airport amid the pandemic and during the lockdown. The virus poses such a threat that I was the first to register, to volunteer, and to get the first dose of the vaccine. It was approved by the scientific committee at the health department. The vaccine is both safe and efficient.
Members of the COVID-19 task force revealed that only 537,000 people have so far registered for vaccination on the e-platform evax.tn. However, this number is likely to rise as the health department is launching a public awareness campaign to encourage people to trust the vaccine.
Given the number of people who have recovered from the coronavirus, an estimated 60% to 70% community immunity can be achieved if Tunisians join the vaccination campaign. There is no scientific reason to avoid vaccination. It's necessary in order to stop the pandemic and resume a normal life.
Authorities announced that within 2 or 3 days, 15,000 health workers will be vaccinated with the Sputnik vaccine. The head of Tunis Emergency Medical Assistance Center warned that the number of infections is on the rise in Tunisia.
The healthcare system was affected by the pandemic. Some 12,000 medics and paramedics were infected with the coronavirus. 55% of my staff tested positive in a few months. Only yesterday, my colleague tested positive. There is no way out of the health crisis without vaccination.
The Pasteur Institute in Tunis announced that several centers have been equipped with cooling equipment with a temperature of -20 degrees to properly preserve the vaccines. The institute also revealed that the DNA sequencing operation is going to confirm or deny the infection of a 62-year-old man by the British variant.
The first coronavirus vaccination operations for the benefit of vaccination teams and frontline health workers kicked off in 25 vaccination centers across the country. Military health personnel and security forces will get vaccinated next week. Abdel Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
In Washington, D.C., the elderly and essential workers are lining up for vaccinations. CGTN's Nathan King walks us through the process from getting an appointment to getting the jab.
So it's a really exciting moment for me. I'm going to be getting my first dose of vaccine in a few minutes. You have to go on this website for Washington DC. They gave you certain times that you had to go on, and you had to fill all your information in really quickly and hope there was an appointment. But finally, after 4 or 5 attempts, I did get an appointment. And the big thing is you print out one of these, and look, Americans are getting used to barcodes. You know, in China, this is 101. You know, it's basically exactly a year since the global pandemic was declared and we went into lockdown here in DC, and the fact that I'm getting it on this anniversary, I know, it feels like Christmas has come early, you know? The other great thing is this is just literally a 5-minute drive from my house. And here we are. Only 5 minutes, perfect. Maybe cut this, I'm going to take my shirt off. We don't want to have an X-rated movie, do we, John? It's like I wore a clean t-shirt. Okay, here we go.
All right, so right there, and then I'll just let the muscle get it in.
Oh, I feel a little prick now, yeah.
Let's get it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm so excited. I've never been this excited to get an injection. That's it?
That's it, and
that was nothing.
We don't have lollipops, so however we have
a
10% coupon for your shopping experience.
Oh, I can get my groceries.
Yeah.
John,
yeah.
thank you so much. You've been such a good friend. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Oh, you made me a happy man.
Thank you.
I don't know what it is. I feel like crying. I'm not going to cry. I feel like crying. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
I try to not let it affect me, but there are days when it does. I'm a human being, and to see patients in a hospital bed and their family members are not there, there's no one there to hold their hand, that human touch, you know?
I just hope that the situation is not permanent and that everything will get better eventually.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
Welcome back to Africa Live. We appreciate your company. Sudanese Prime Minister Abdel Hamdok has wrapped up a two-day state visit to Egypt. He met with the Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, other officials, and Egyptian civilian groups. Hamdok's visit to Cairo is the most recent chapter of a series of high-level diplomatic, military, and economic talks that the two countries began on the 2nd of March.
For the past 2 weeks, Egypt and Sudan have been holding extensive senior meetings. It began with a foreign ministers' meeting in Cairo, followed by a military visit from the Egyptian Chief of Staff to Khartoum. And after 5 days from President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi's meeting with the head of the Sudanese Sovereign Council, Abdel Fattah el-Burhan, in Sudan, el-Sisi receives Prime Minister Abdullah Hamdok here at the Ittihadiyya Palace.
There are strategic ties between Egypt and Sudan. The common interests by far exceed any points of differences. The intensity of communication between them matches the nature of this current phase. Both of them are looking for economic development. Both nations are looking to complement one another, especially that there is no longer ideological differences between them, post-President al-Bashir.
Hamdok discussed regional conflicts in the Horn of Africa, bilateral ties, and means to revive the Grand Ethiopia Renaissance Dam talks. Egypt has earlier accepted a Sudanese proposal for a mediating quartet. It should include the UN, EU, AU, and the United States as brokers for a lasting solution before Ethiopia proceeds with its plans to continue filling the dam in July.
Egypt and Sudan reviewed the impact the Gerd Dam could have on both their nations. They focused on the political tracks of the talks rather than the technical side. I believe there is complete alignment in their views over how the talks with Ethiopia should proceed. Egypt and Sudan are no longer divided over the issue.
The two nations are also planning to replicate Egypt's economic reform plans in Sudan. Cairo offered to train Sudanese calibers in many fields to help in reviving the Sudanese economy. Hamdok has also looked into speeding up projects of joining electricity grids and railroads between the two neighbors.
Building upon the thrust of strong relations between Egypt and Sudan, Hamdok suggested reopening talks about the Halayib and Shalatin Triangle, a disputed area between the two nations. He believes that by resolving all silence files, the two nations can finally enjoy permanent brotherly relations. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
The pandemic has sparked to a boom in cycling in New York as people seek to avoid public transport. And that has highlighted a critical shortage of places to park while at home or work. Now, activist groups are calling for bicycle parking to be made a priority. Sarah Walton reports from New York.
New York may be famous for its yellow taxis, but another form of transportation is now booming here. There's been a 25% increase in cycling in the city during the pandemic. But it's led to scenes like this. Multiple bikes chained to lampposts and flower beds because there just aren't enough official bike parking spaces. Cycling Club President Christopher Matthias is a big advocate for two-wheel travel, but says he wouldn't dream of commuting to work this way because of the lack of reliable parking.
Often you go back to the same spots and the parking is not there anymore because of construction, bike poles are moved, not returned. They've done a very good job with bike lanes, but the infrastructure for the bike parking has not increased. So I would like to see spaces that are safe, well lit, maybe even sheltered in some ways.
The campaign group Transportation Alternatives has now started a petition calling for the Mayor of New York, Bill de Blasio, to invest in more bike racks. Even before the pandemic, the city counted nearly 1.6 million cyclists, but it has just 56,000 dedicated bike parking spots. And even though more households in New York own a bike than a car parking spaces outnumber cycle spaces by 100 to 1. Experts in urban planning say it's a problem that could be simple to fix.
Everybody's used to the idea that we get to store private cars on the street, and you could store a dozen bicycles in the same amount of space that a single car is stored. So it's just a matter of reallocating parking spaces and designating specific parking spaces as eligible for bicycles, or making it clear that bicycles are allowed to park in parking spots.
Private companies are now moving in to address the issue. Shabazz Stewart created several free parking pods in New York after having 3 bikes stolen in 5 years. But he struggled to get planning approval from local authorities to build more.
We have financing lined up, we have enthusiasm from communities. What we lack is buy-in from City Hall, right? There's so much red tape that prohibits entrepreneurial green infrastructure development. And what we need is to confront that and to dismantle it where appropriate so that we can build the infrastructure of tomorrow.
New York's Department of Transportation says it does take bike parking very seriously and built more than 1,000 new spaces last year. But cycling groups still hope the city will gear up their efforts to put cycles before cars. Sarah Walton, CGTN, New York.
While the UK is slowly coming out of its winter lockdown, for many people, there is no end to the financial stress caused by this pandemic. The number of people using food banks is growing. Nicole Johnston visited one of London's busiest ones. Let's take a look.
Standing in the cold on a grey London day, waiting for food. The line stretches for more than 5 blocks. 804 people joined this queue. Many arrive early in the morning, hours before the food bank opens. A growing tide of food insecurity has gripped this part of London, where many of its residents survive on low-paying, unstable work, or since the pandemic, have no work at all, like Janisha.
Pandemic, because of jobs, first of all, and no proper jobs, and obviously no salary, so that was very difficult to survive. But this people has made a very useful thing by giving food for us.
It's become such a spectacle that Taz Khan from the organisation London's Community Kitchen live streams the food bank every week. The first time he did it, it was viewed 1.7 million times.
We have seen something that we have not witnessed before. They're strapped, they've got no income, they've got no access to public funds, and they literally are left without any support.
Many people here are from the Indian Gujarat community and work in small shops, restaurants, factories and as cleaners. Some are paid as little as $27 a day by employers who are breaking the law.
This is the underhand or the invisible hand of the economy, and it's the elephant in the room. These people are exploited from this very high street that they're collecting food from.
Kajal and Payal have been forced to take jobs where they're underpaid just to survive. As foreign students here, they're not eligible to any government support.
For 15 hours, I am doing job here, morning 8 to 12 at night. Then they give 30 pounds because they say due to coronavirus, we can't do it.
What's remarkable about this long line of people is that it just keeps growing every week. The food bank started by providing parcels for around 200. And now on Saturdays, up to 1,000 people are lining up for a spot in the socially distanced queue. 11-year-old Dharmik told me he's collecting food for his parents and brother.
These operations are happening throughout the country. People are not talking about it because there's some stigma and people don't want to accept that their borough is living in food poverty or food insecurity. It's the conversation people don't wish to have.
But people are talking about scenes like this. The 5th largest economy in the world, where people queue for handouts of food. Nicole Johnston, CGTN, North London.
The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Kanata, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
Welcome back. Thanks for sticking with us. Violence against women is becoming endemic to many countries around the world. According to the World Health Organization, 1 in 3 women globally face sexual or physical violence. Intimate partner violence is among the most prevalent forms of violence and affects over 640 million women. Let's go to South Africa, a country which has been battling to bring gender-based violence under control. CGTN's Julie Shire has more on that story.
South Africa has one of the highest domestic violence rates in the world. It spiked more than 50% in a lengthy COVID-19 lockdown. Sifilele Leruli's partner has been abusive through her 11-year relationship, and it's getting worse.
The guy is like a psychopath. The guy creates even stories to lie. And now I believe like it might be true. I'm running away from home because there is no happiness. I've never seen happiness in my life. I've never seen happiness in my life.
The World Health Organization says intimate partner abuse has climbed alarmingly in many African countries since the pandemic began. Local NGO like Rays of Hope, which operates in Alexandra Township, says the increase has been evident.
We've seen women coming here every day being battered by their partners. They were carrying their big bags with children to say, I don't have a place to sleep. My husband just chased me out of the house. Some they even went as far as separation. Some they even divorced during the lockdown.
Efforts to curb gender-based violence are falling short. Women here have been living in fear long before the pandemic hit.
I was with him for like 18 years, so the relationship was up and down. He wasn't working. Even if I put him in jobs, he would start drinking, go and gambling, and start being physically. But I thought maybe it will change, but it never changed. Even the kids, it did affect them, because they will even say, why can't you get us another father?
South Africa is tightening up laws around female attacks. Diane Nkata managed to escape her relationship, but says a lot has to change, starting with unreliable structures.
We are not protected as women. They should find better systems which can protect the women and children. It will help a lot. Because for me, I can't trust police anymore. When you're with someone who's not treating you well, you need to get out. I needed help. I was calling for help. No one wanted to listen. I didn't get that help on time. I went to the social workers, no answers. I went to the police, no answers.
Ongoing protests for several years have brought some attention to the matter, but it's going to take a lot more. Most women are trapped by financial circumstances and by the stigma related to domestic violence, chains that need to be broken by comprehensive community programs. Julie Shara, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
Chronic kidney disease is a growing burden in Nigeria, like many low-income countries. Low healthcare financing has also hampered the design of prevention and management strategies. Now, conversations center on how to help patients live well with the disease. CGTN's Kelechi Mekalam reports.
It's hard to tell, but 51-year-old Abdulkadir Amadu has been battling end-stage kidney failure since year 2000, just weeks before his wedding. He's undergone 3 kidney transplants and more than 2,000 dialysis sessions, costing over $300,000. A traumatic experience for himself and his family.
Finance is to get the medicines. They are not that cheap, and they are not off-the-counter medications. So you have to order. But by the grace of God, I have very wonderful people around me and family who know what it is, who know what I'm going through, and they help.
He now told us that, Grace, I'm sorry you cannot donate. And I said, why? He said, you are not compatible. I said, immediately I started crying. I burst into tears and started crying. Because we had stayed like 5 months in Bangalore, running all the tests.
2 decades on, Abdul Kadir is living his best life. Though on strict medication, 15 pills daily costing an average $3,000 for a 3-month supply. He has been able to maintain a decent level of normalcy and work-life balance.
I take strength from my faith. The first thing I live by is faith. The spirit of a man will sustain him. Everybody can tell you, sorry, you'll be fine. Well, if you don't tell yourself that you're going to be fine, you won't get up. You won't be fine.
Chronic kidney disease is prevalent in Nigeria. Health authorities say that about 17 million out of Nigeria's 200 million strong population have various stages of kidney diseases. Experts say patients' care and management has been low.
There are many causes of chronic kidney disease, but the commonest, and that's what people should bear in mind, is uncontrolled high blood pressure and uncontrolled diabetes. The treatment straight away, as soon as any patient comes in, is to have a dialysis. And they are on dialysis usually for life. Once it is stage 5 chronic kidney disease, they are on dialysis for life unless they move to the next step, which is kidney transplant.
Campaigns are ongoing across the country to create awareness on prevention, management and treatment of kidney diseases. But most importantly is the drive for survivors like Abdul Kadir to live normal lives. Now he's inspiring many others in similar conditions to maintain positive mindsets. Kelechi Emekalam, CGTN Abuja, Nigeria.
And we're not done just yet. We've got your sport news coming up after the break. Here's a peek at that headline. Ugandans share their expectations as Motsepe takes charge at CAF.
How would you create your legend? On the fields, on the tracks, in the arenas of Africa.